Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Meg, welcome, and if you're returning, then welcome back. Today's video is going to be part 3 to My First Love. I mean, I don't know if there'll be a part 4 or not. We'll have to see how far I get into the story. If I've still got more to tell by the end of this video, then I will do a part 4. I feel like there probably will be a part 4 because honestly so much happened in this relationship. It was like EastEnders. By the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably haven't watched part 1 or 2, so I would recommend watching those first before you watch this one because it won't make an awful lot of sense. I will link them down below if you do want to watch them. I'm just going to do a quick summary of part 2 as well before I get into the story. So basically my boyfriend Harry and I ended up getting back together after breaking up twice. We broke up once, got back together the next day or 2 days later, and then we broke up again a few days later. We were broken up for about 2 weeks, then we got back together, and then basically a few months later we ended up having quite a, I guess, a turbulent relationship. We were arguing quite a lot, we weren't really getting on. We ended up breaking up again, and so this was the 3rd time that we'd broken up now. We hadn't even been together a year yet, but every time we broke up he would always like move on and I never would, and he would also always find a way to keep me there. Like he would always continue talking to me on MSN and stuff like that. Obviously now I wouldn't stand for any shit like that, but back then I was a 15-year-old naive girl and I just really loved this boy. I didn't ever want to let him go. Anyway, I was a little suspicious of Harry's behaviour, and I actually managed to get into his Facebook because he was silly enough not to change his Facebook password because I knew his password from when we were together, and I was just about to tell you what I found when I left it on a cliffhanger. So just a disclaimer, which I say in every video, I'm not talking about this relationship because I still care. I'm doing it for educational purposes to let all young girls out there know that, you know, it's okay to go through heartbreak. You will be okay, as much as you probably think you won't be at the time. You will come out better, especially when you're so young as well. I don't have any malice towards Harry or any of the people that I mentioned in this video. This was literally 10 years ago now, and I mean, I'm a grudge holder, but I'm not that bad, Jesus. And also I don't want it to come across like I'm disrespecting my relationship that I'm in now by talking about past relationships, because that's not the case. I did get my boyfriend's permission to talk about exes. He doesn't care. He doesn't see it as disrespectful, so yeah, just thought I'd say that before any of you start coming for me. Not that any of you do, most of you are lovely, but you know, I feel the need to clarify that. So I'll set the scene. I did set the scene at the end of part 2, but I'll set it again. So it was a weekend in June, and it was the weekend of the carnival and the folk festival in the town that I live in. And my mum was having a barbecue at ours, and she had some friends here. My brother was here, my brother's girlfriend at the time was here as well, and I was kind of just staying away from it. I was up in my room being completely antisocial because I just didn't really want to be around people. I think when I am sad, I don't like being around people. I don't like crying in front of people. I would much rather just be on my own and let myself be sad. So I was upstairs and I was going insane, and I managed to get into Harry's Facebook account because when we were together we knew each other's passwords, not for any like because we used to check up on each other or anything like that, just because we just knew each other's passwords. He had the same password for everything, but I just assumed he would have changed it when we broke up, but he obviously didn't. So I get into his Facebook and I click onto his messages. That's the first thing I did. And I basically saw that he had been seeing someone else, and that someone else was Lexie, my friend. My friend who comforted me when me and Harry broke up and told me she was always going to be there for me. My friend that wrote something in like Latin or Arabic on Harry's wall and I didn't know what it meant. Hi Hans. Sorry to interrupt, I'm just editing this video and I've just realised that I didn't actually mention what it was that she wrote on his wall, because I did find out, and it was I love you in like Arabic or Latin or something like that. So she was literally telling him that she loved him and he was telling her that he loved her. Sorry, I just had to add that bit in. He made some excuse for it, I can't even remember what it was now. It was so obvious looking back. He got his friends and his sister to lie to me about where he was. But yeah, he'd been full on seeing this Lexie girl. He'd been going around her house, they were making brownies together. And when I saw that, I was just like, I don't know what it was, because obviously I was used to Harry doing stuff like that to me. Like he'd done something like that to me before. So But I think it was because it was one of my friends as well. It was like double betrayal. The first thing I did was ring my best friend Robin, because Lexie was Robin's friend, but she was my friend as well, but I met her through Robin. Robin was obviously furious. She was like, don't worry Meg, I'm gonna sort her out. And Robin at this point was at Folk Festival drunk in the middle of the day, and she said that she rang Lexie and went mental at her in the middle of town. Everyone could hear her. Love you, Robin, if you're watching this. Robin is my bestest friend, like my oldest friend. We've been best friends since we were 9 and we're still best friends now. And she's always been there for me in every breakup that I've had. And that day, you know, I don't think I felt ready to speak to Lexie. I don't think I even wanted to get angry with her. I think I just kind of left that bit to Robin. This was the first time that me and Harry had broken up, and I actually did not want to see him or speak to him or anything. I didn't want to hear from him. And all I did, and I wish I still had this willpower, but I guess back then iPhones didn't exist. Like, you literally had a phone to text and call people and play games. That was pretty much it. You couldn't, like, Instagram didn't even exist back then. You couldn't get Facebook or anything on your phone. So I didn't have as much of a need to have my phone with me. But basically I text Harry saying, I know about you and Lexie, and I think that's all I said. I was very cryptic, and then I left my phone upstairs and I went downstairs to my mum's barbecue and I got drunk. And I don't mean like off of Alka Pops, I mean I drank vodka and I got white girl drunk. Obviously I went downstairs and told my mum and my brother's girlfriend at the time what had happened, and they were both just like, you need to get drunk, basically. Not really my mum, more my brother's girlfriend. And yeah, because I was young, I hadn't really broken into like the world of spirits and wine and all things like that yet. 2, I hadn't really been eating anything. I don't know if I mentioned that in the summary, but I wasn't really eating much because I just felt sick all the time. So, you know, there wasn't really anything in my stomach to soak up what I was about to drink. I hadn't eaten anything that day. I remember I hadn't eaten a single thing. The first thing that entered my stomach was alcohol, so of course I was going to get drunk. And actually I ended up having a really good night. I got very drunk and I ended up like riding this fire truck that we had in our garden, not obviously a real one, like a play one. I ended up sitting in that and riding it around my garden, and I left my phone upstairs. I didn't even think about checking it. Like, I literally did not look at it once all night. I just left it there. I didn't think about Harry. I just had a good night, and I don't even think I cried, you know. Normally when I'm upset and I get drunk, I end up crying at the end of the night, but I don't think I did. I think I'd just had enough by this point. It got to like maybe 10 o'clock at night. It was time to go to bed, definitely time for me to go to bed because I was just gone at this point. And I went upstairs, and obviously I looked at my phone when I got into bed, and Harry had tried calling me a few times. He tried texting me. Well, he hadn't tried texting me, he had texted me saying, you know, answer your phone, I want to talk to you, blah blah blah. And I just ignored it, and I'm so proud of past Meg for doing that, because that took a lot for me to do that. I went to sleep, and I actually woke up in the middle of the night, maybe like 3-4 a.m. with really severe hunger pains. Like, my stomach was like an earthquake. It was ridiculous. When I get drunk, I end up waking up really early in the morning because I'm so dehydrated and I need to eat something. I think that's just a standard thing with being drunk, but obviously this was the first time I'd been that drunk. I hadn't eaten a single thing and I was starving. So I got up in the middle of the night, and I remember I made myself a pot noodle, and I actually couldn't eat all of it. I tried to eat it, and I normally love pot noodles. I could demolish a pot noodle easily, but I struggled to eat it. And I remember for a while I actually couldn't eat pot noodles because I would just think of that night where I was trying to eat one and couldn't. But I ate like half of it. And I think I took it upon myself to reply to Harry's text in the middle of the night, and he actually ended up replying to me, so he was obviously awake. I don't know why. He didn't strike me as the sort of person that had a conscience, but obviously he was awake for some reason. And I wish I could remember what I even said to him, but I can't. I know I said something along the lines of like, you've really done it this time, like this cannot be undone. And I basically just told him that I wanted nothing to do with him now. And then the next day I spoke to Lexie. Well, I didn't really speak to her. I sent her a message basically saying, I know what you've done. I was probably nasty to her because back then I was a kid. I probably called her a load of names. I gave her the same treatment that I gave him, because they were both as guilty as each other. And I also told her that I had sat with him while he was seeing her, which was true. I didn't make that up. He had come round to my house one morning, which I forgot to mention in my part 2, but there was one morning, it must have been on a weekend because it was when I wasn't working, doing my work experience. He came round, I can't remember why, maybe to get some stuff, I don't know, but we ended up sleeping together. I didn't know that he was seeing one of my friends at this point, so I told Lexie about it out of spite and out of smugness. I was like, he obviously doesn't like you that much because he's still been talking to me this whole time and he slept with me the other day, which was true. I think she gave him the boot because of that. Which, I mean, she shouldn't have been seeing him in the first place. Like, you don't hear of your friend breaking up with their boyfriend, message them about it and say you're there for them and then crack on with them yourself. That's just, you can't really get much more disloyal than that, can you? But anyway, she actually gave him the boot because of it, but I didn't know that because he made out like he had ended it with her because he felt so bad on me. I didn't find out until a bit later on that it was actually her that told him to F off. But anyway, I basically had decided, you know, I'm not speaking to Harry anymore. I don't want anything to do with him. I'm gonna embrace my life now. I'm gonna stop being so hung up on this guy and I'm gonna start living my life again. And the following week, because this all happened like on that weekend, so I went back to do my work experience on the Monday and I was eating again and I actually wanted to eat now. I don't know what it was, even though I felt so betrayed, it was almost like the final push that I needed to really be like, fuck you, sort of thing. So I felt so much better. It was really weird. And yeah, I started eating again and I don't know, I just wasn't as unhappy anymore. I felt like I wasn't trapped by him anymore, like he'd finally done something to push me away for good. So I did my second week of work experience and I think I went back to school the following week, which would have been July at this point. So at this point we've been broken up for like 3 weeks. One of those weeks was half term, which was like the week that we broke up in. Then I had my 2 weeks work experience and now I was going back to school. And I was excited to go back to school because I was going back to school single. Like, I know I'd been single before, but this time felt like proper. Not that I was planning on doing anything with my single life because I wasn't ready to move on really. And I still hadn't, by the way. I still hadn't like been talking to anyone or anything like that. I was just like, I didn't feel nervous to go back to school and see him. I felt ready for it. Anyway, he started creeping around me again. I remember I was in a class and we ended up having to go to the computer rooms for some reason. It wasn't ICT because I didn't do ICT for GCSE, but it must have been food tech actually because me and him were in the same food tech class. And I think for whatever reason we had to go to the computer rooms and he came and sat next to me, like on the computer next to me, and I was like, can I help you, sort of thing. And he started talking to me and I mean I was getting on with him, but I wasn't thinking anything into it. Like I wasn't thinking, oh, we're gonna get back together. I was just being nice. It was a lot easier. It's always a lot easier to just get on with someone, especially when you're in the environment where you are around them. So yeah, I was just kind of playing it cool, to be honest. I was getting on with him for the sake of it, not because I wanted to. But I could kind of tell that he was like making an effort with me, like he was going out of his way to make an effort. And then that weekend I was going to my friend's house for like a sleepover weekend. It was me, my friend whose house it was, and then I think two others of us, and it was like a really nice summer weekend. I remember we camped out in the garden, we had the paddling pool out and we were like sitting in the pool. It was honestly a really nice weekend. I still remember it like really clearly to this day. But as I said, back then mobile phones didn't have like Facebook or anything like that on them, and I didn't really ever use my phone other than to text and call people. So if I was at a sleepover, I didn't really have my phone on me. I would just leave it in my bag. I think I must have blocked his number as well because I didn't like receive any texts from him or anything. I was at this sleepover and basically Harry started messaging my friend, who I'll call her Emily. My friend's called Emily. He started texting Emily asking her if I was okay and where I was because he said he couldn't get hold of me. And she didn't actually tell me that he was messaging her because she didn't want to ruin my weekend. Like she could see I was having a good time, so she didn't want to like tell me about it. She basically just replied to him saying, yeah, she's at mine, we're having a nice weekend, like leave her alone sort of thing. It was none of his business anyway where I was, because I was his ex-girlfriend at this point. Like, we'd been broken up for, as I say, 3, maybe nearly 4 weeks. He'd been seeing one of my friends behind my back, like not even just talking to her, actually going around her house and getting with her. And you know, you have no right to even ask where I am, it's none of your business. So I'm glad that she didn't tell me anyway, because I did have a really good weekend, and that would have been the Saturday night. So I stayed over on the Saturday night, and then on the Sunday, that was the day where it was a really nice day. We were in the pool and we were playing Guitar Hero. And then a bit later on, like maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon, my mum came and got me and brought me home. And the first thing I did was go on my laptop and go on Facebook. And I had a load of messages from Harry, like being like, where are you? I'm worried about you. I really want to talk to you, blah, blah, blah. And before I even replied to them, I clicked onto his profile. I don't know why, I don't know what possessed me to do that, but I clicked onto his profile and he'd written a Facebook status that night, like the night before, saying, it's true what they say, you never know what you've got until it's gone. And I was sat there like, that's about me. Like, I don't understand who else that could be about, especially since he's been creeping around me and messaging me and asking my friends where I am. At this point, I think I messaged Emily and was like, Harry's messaged me on Facebook, and then she told me about him messaging her, and she was like, I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to ruin your night. And I was like, no, that's fine, thank you for not telling me. So yeah, I was feeling pretty smug at this point because, you know, I genuinely had no interest in him. I was moving on, like I was getting on with my life, but I don't know what it was, like when I saw that and when I saw how much he was chasing me, because this was probably the most he'd ever chased me, because he'd never really needed to before now. This sadness just came over me, like I just felt sad. And I remember messaging him and being like, I miss you, and he was like, I miss you too. And he told me he wanted to get back together. And I was like, look, you've fucked up a lot this time. Like, you did the first time, but this time you've done it even worse. I don't know if I can forgive you. Like, it's going to take a lot for me to want to get back with you this time. So the following week, we were friends again at this point, me and Harry. So we were walking to and from school together. And he basically said to me, like, I can't walk home with you this afternoon because I've got a dentist appointment. So I didn't wait for him after school, I just walked home by myself. Back in these days, my mum used to leave not our front or our back door, but our patio door, which goes out onto our back garden. She used to leave that unlocked, which obviously wasn't public knowledge, but we still got a dog, but it was for the dog mainly. My neighbour used to come over and let the dog out. So I get home and I come into the house, and normally I never used to go up to my room when I got home from school. I literally, like, my routine when I used to get home from school was come home, raid my fridge and my cupboard for snacks, like normally a packet of crisps, a chocolate bar out of the fridge, and I would just sit and watch TV and eat snacks until my mum got home, pretty much. I don't know how I was so skinny back then, honestly, the amount of crap I used to eat. So I didn't even think to go upstairs, and I hear like someone coming down my stairs, which I was like, what the fuck, no one's in, who's in my house? And it was Harry, and he'd obviously like ran back to my house. He'd lied about the dentist appointment, he'd ran back so that he could get back to my house before me. And apparently he was sat in my room and had the Bruno Mars song, what's it called? I think it's called Just the Way You Are. I think it was that one. So he had that playing on my laptop, but obviously I didn't hear it because it was upstairs and I was downstairs. And I didn't go upstairs, so I didn't end up even knowing he was there. And he basically came downstairs and was like, I tried to be romantic, but you didn't come into your room. And I was like, okay. And then he kind of told me, like, he loved me. He was really sorry for everything he'd done. Looking back, it wasn't enough. I shouldn't have taken him back, but I did. And I shouldn't have. And do you know what? I've mentioned in my story time about my toxic best friend. Obviously by this point Harry had already cheated on me as well, like not even everything he'd done when we were broken up, but he'd actually cheated on me when we were together, which I didn't know about. But my best friend at the time, I'll call her Beth because that's what I called her in my story time about her, she knew that he had cheated on me at that house party, but she didn't tell me. Like, I understand why she didn't tell me when we broke up, because I mean, I probably wouldn't tell my friend. I mean, well, that's a lie. I probably would tell my friend. But I guess if you've already broken up with them, there's no need to like hurt them even more. But at the point where I said, Beth, I'm getting back together with Harry, she should have been like, well, don't do that because he cheated on you. Because I would never have gotten back with him if I'd known that. And I know what you're all thinking, Meg, it was obvious he cheated on you. And it was, looking back, it really was. But I don't know, back then I trusted people way too much. I really did. Like now I don't trust anybody and I much prefer it that way. But you know, I'd never been cheated on back then. I didn't have a reason to think that he would cheat on me. So yeah, I got back with him for the third time. Yeah, the third time. But this time it felt different. Like our relationship felt different. It was almost like he was finally making like an effort with me. I mean, he never didn't make an effort with me, but it almost felt like he was being like overly nice all the time, and like it was weird. He was like a changed man. Everything was good, we were in love, and then we came back to school in the September. Now I used to stay at his on Friday nights normally after school, and he had football on a Saturday morning, so he just used to get up and go to his football training and I would just stay in bed. I was in bed and he'd gone to football and I went on his laptop. And I don't know why I went on it. It was an innocent reason. It was either to like watch something or it was for completely innocent reasons. But part of me like wanted to look at his MSN history, because back then your MSN chat history, you could tick a box that said don't save my chat history, but your MSN chat history basically automatically saved in a folder on your laptop. So I went onto his MSN chat history and I found a load of conversations with girls that were happening when me and him were together, and he was full on flirting with them, like telling them they were beautiful, telling them they were fit. Some of them were my friends. And actually one of them was my friend Emily, who I mentioned that I was at the sleepover with, and she wasn't entertaining it, so I don't blame her at all, but she also never told me about it. You could tell that she felt awkward, like the replies she was giving was a bit like, stop talking to me sort of thing. She should have told me about it, but whatever. But there was a lot of flirting going on, considering he had a girlfriend. None of it was recent though, all of it was like when we were first together and like in like the first sort of 6 to 8 months of us being together. And obviously I also felt the need to look at all the conversations from when we were broken up. So for example, I went onto the chat history between him and Lexie, and that was when I found out that she was the one that ended it with him, and he was like full on begging her to forgive him for sleeping with me. She wasn't having any of it. That was when I realised like the only reason he was sorry for what he'd done with Lexie was because she gave him the boot. And I remember sitting there and I didn't cry because I don't actually think I had any tears left in me to cry over this boy. Nothing surprised me anymore either. Like it had gotten to that point where I just expected him to do things wrong. I remember sitting in his room and I was pondering over what to do. I was like, do I leave and go home and just not say anything and not answer his call when he tries to call me? Do I leave the laptop open on what I found, leave, and then let him find that and he'll know what it is that's driven me away? Or do I stay here and wait to confront him and see what he does? And I chose to stay because I was like, you know what? He can't deny it because the evidence is right in front of his eyes. Let me tell you, men will try to deny shit. Even when you've literally got it in front of them, they will still say, no, I didn't do that. But I was like, yeah, I want to stay. I want to confront him. I want to see what his reaction is. So I did. I stayed. And it felt like the longest few hours of my life. And he got back and I was just sat in his room and he came in and he was like all smiles, like, oh, excited to see me sort of thing. And I was just kind of sat there like, and obviously he knew something was wrong. And he was like, what's wrong? And I don't know whether I left the laptop open. I think I shut the laptop and I just said, like, I've looked at your MSN chat history. And I basically said, like, you've been flirting with girls our entire relationship. And the thing is, a lot of people, mainly men, will argue that flirting isn't cheating. But I think it's just as bad because you're still seeking attention from another girl when you've got a girlfriend. And also, obviously, the conversation with Lexie, I was like, look, she ended things with you because of you sleeping with me. You made out like you ended things with her because your morals were so good and you felt so bad on me that you couldn't do it to me anymore. But actually she's the one that gave you the boot, and if she hadn't done that, we probably wouldn't even be together right now because you would still be with her, sort of thing. He started crying, and it was very rare for Harry to cry. Like, I had seen him cry before, but this was like, he was actually crying because he'd hurt me, which he never did normally. He didn't really care majority of the time when he hurt me. He was just like, look, I've been a shit boyfriend to you, I know that. I've changed now. I realised the last time we broke up that you were the one I wanted. I wouldn't have like tried to get you back if I didn't really want to be back with you. And he was like, I will be better from now on. I haven't done anything like that recently. And he hadn't, to be fair. Like I said, all of it was from like when we were together in the first 6 to 8 months, which wasn't that long ago. We'd still only been together 11 months at this point, because our 1 year anniversary was in October. And I know he hadn't done anything since we'd got back together this new time. Well, I thought he hadn't anyway. We'll get to that. I forgave him, but from that point on, I was always a little bit like, it was almost like I was waiting for him to do something else wrong. And I started being so much more suspicious of him. Like, I didn't have the trust for him that I had before. Nothing surprised me anymore. I was always just waiting for someone to tell me, like, Harry's done this. And I started getting people telling me stuff, but it wasn't anything to do with girls. It was to do with, like, he used to smoke weed, but he always used to lie to me and say that he didn't. I used to get other boys that weren't necessarily his friends. They were more my friends, but, like, they would end up like at someone's house smoking weed with my boyfriend, who was adamant to me that he didn't ever smoke it. So I would get boys coming up to me and being like, Harry does smoke weed, he does it behind your back all the time. So I would be like, do you smoke weed, yes or no? And he would obviously say no. He would say that he didn't even smoke like cigarettes. And it was all like little things like that. None of it was about other girls, but it was small things like, well, not that smoking weed behind your girlfriend's back is a small thing, but do you know what I mean? It would be things like that, little like white lies. And I don't know why he never just told me the truth. I didn't like him smoking weed. I don't like anyone smoking weed because I've seen what it does to people. But, you know, they were minor things compared to some of the other shit he'd done. But it was getting like ridiculous. It was getting to the point where like every week I was getting someone new come up to me and be like, Harry's done this, Harry's done that. And I was just sick of it at this point. And I think I'd gotten to the point where I wanted an excuse to break up with him because I was so tired of this shit. And because he didn't ever admit to anything, I didn't have a valid excuse to break up with him, which sounds ridiculous because, you know, now I would just be like, look, I've had enough of your lies and just break up with him. But I was saying to people, I almost want like something really bad to come out about him so that I've got an excuse to leave him, because this is exhausting. It wasn't even enjoyable for me anymore being with him. Also, he'd become extremely possessive. Like, he would accuse me of cheating on him, like at house parties and stuff, which was ridiculous because, as I said, every time we'd broken up, I'd never moved on, he always had. When we'd broken up, it was never me that wanted to break up, it was always him. Like, he was the one that had done things wrong in our relationship. I'd never done anything wrong, like never. Yet he still didn't trust me. He would always accuse me of stuff. And it did get to the point where I was like, look, if you don't start trusting me and stop accusing me of doing all this shit, I'm just gonna break up with you because it's ridiculous. And then he'd be like, oh no, I'm sorry. So weird to look back because the relationship had almost flipped on its side. Now I was the one that was like, didn't really want to be in the relationship, and he was the one like begging for me all the time, and he'd kind of become the beggy one, the doormat one, and I was the one that was in control, which was really weird. Obviously it had never been like that before. It was always me that was like, oh my god, I love you so much, what can I do for you? And him that was like, I don't want to be with you, sort of thing. Anyway, it's like November by this point, and it's like right at the end of November. I was going Christmas shopping with my friend Beth, the toxic best friend, and he had also gone Christmas shopping, but he'd bought all of my Christmas presents, whereas I hadn't bought anything for him yet. So I was out with Beth and I was just telling her about Harry and saying how like I don't trust him anymore after everything that he's done, and I don't even feel like I want to be in the relationship anymore. And I basically said to her, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's cheated on me. Like, I'm just waiting, because that was, like, the one thing that he'd never done to me, sort of thing. That was the one thing I'd never been told he'd done. So I was just waiting for someone to tell me that he cheated on me. I didn't think it was going to be my best friend, who'd known for months and not told me. But yeah, she kind of just blurted out like, yeah, he did cheat on you. She kind of made out like she forgot about it and that's why she didn't tell me. How you could possibly forget about your friend being cheated on is beyond me, but she was a very selfish person. She was very self-absorbed. So if it didn't affect her, she didn't really care. So yeah, she just casually drops it on me that my boyfriend's cheated on me. By this point, we've been together for over a year as well. We've celebrated our 1 year anniversary. I mean, some people could probably argue that technically we hadn't been together for a year because we'd broken up 3 times. But we still treated it as our 1 year anniversary. I went and sat in McDonald's with her. We got on McDonald's and she told me what had happened. She said that he cheated on me at that house party that he went to. Remember the one that he went to, and then the next day when he was breaking up with me, some girl called him. That was the girl that he cheated on me with. And the reason she found out is because obviously he was at that house party with his friends. His friends told my friend. I don't know why. Maybe they wanted me to find out. It backfired because she was such a shit friend that she didn't even tell me. I don't really know how they told her, why they told her, but they told her and she never told me. And if she had, I never would have got back with him. But she didn't. So here I was, wasting another 6 months of my life with this boy. And you know what? When she was telling me, I was like, I sort of already knew, I think. I already knew in my head, like, of course he did. It was so obvious. And I wasn't upset, I was just angry because I just didn't have any feelings left anymore. Nothing surprised me anymore. And like I said, I was expecting it. I was ready for it to come out. So I sent Harry this really cryptic text being like, we need to talk. But I didn't tell him what it was about. I didn't tell him like anything. And he's texting me all day going like, what is it? Like, what have people said now? Like, he's blaming other people, being like, everyone just wants to come for us. Everyone wants to split us up. What have people said now? What have you heard now? Sort of thing. And I was just ignoring it. I was leaving him to sweat because it was so entertaining. So I'm on this shopping trip all day. I didn't buy him any Christmas presents. I originally went out to buy his Christmas presents, but I didn't end up buying him anything because I just found out he cheated on me. And I was just ignoring him all day. Got back home and I decided to ring him because I wanted to hear it in his voice when he heard what I had to say. And you know what, guys, in good old-fashioned Megan Rose style, that is where I'm gonna leave it for today. There's still quite a lot to talk about, like, that I can't fit into this part because otherwise it will be like 2 hours long. So there is going to be a part 4, good news. And again, I will try and do it quite close to this one, unlike part 1 and 2, which were about a year apart, it felt like. That is today's cliffhanger, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to watch any of my other story times, I will link those down below. I'll see you in part 4, where you'll find out the final part to the saga that was my first love. See you in my next video. Bye, guys.